In today's video, we're talking about 15 ways that you can go about automating your Gmail account, hopefully winning back so much time. Personally, I use pretty much every single one of these, or at least the vast majority of these, every single day. I can't tell you how big of a quality of life increase this has been for me, and I'm sure that you'll find value in this as well. Let's get into this. We are using n8n to automate pretty much everything in this video. And the first thing I'm going to do is start off with the really basic things in order to set you up for success. And then we're going to be progressively working our way through more complicated things. And so most of the time, the backbone of automating things in Gmail is waiting for emails to come in. Because when an email comes in, we might want to do things like automatically label that email. We might want to automatically reply to that email or forward that email to somebody else. And so for that reason, the first thing that I want to start off with inside n8n is the Gmail trigger. So we'll click plus here, search for Gmail, and we'll notice that there is one particular trigger here, which is when we receive a message in Gmail. Now, the first thing is that we will actually go ahead, fetch a response to see if anything loads in here, which fortunately it does. Now, the only problem with this particular response that it gave back is that it's hiding a lot of critical data that we need. And one of those important pieces is the text of the particular email. So if I was to go into this email, we'll see that this is the text here. And fortunately, we can see that in this snippet, it has received this. But the snippet is a bit problematic because this only loads in maybe 100 characters. It's kind of like the preview to the email that you see. And so if your email is very long, okay, and let's just go into the promotions tab, which is like the deepest crevice of my Gmail inbox that I never go to. I'm going to go to this one. This is a long email, lots of text. Not all of this is going to be covered in the particular snippet here. And so we actually have to get all of the information. How we do that is through this simplify module or node here. So we're going to uncheck this, and then we can fetch in response again. And now we have access to everything else, like the text down here and like just tons of other information. And so that is point number one. Point number two is that in Gmail, one of my favorite functions is the Gmail search function up here. Like we can actually search for things that we want up here, and the filter works quite well. We have access to that directly inside n8n as well, and we can use this filter here. So we'll add a filter. Usually this is going to be a search filter, which is essentially the one-to-one equivalent to this search filter up top here. And we can more or less filter just like we do inside Gmail as well. If we click this more info button here, it's going to send us to a link of all of the different filters that we can provide to this n8n trigger. So some of the more common ones are like things like file name. So I use this all the time. Maybe you want to find just PDF documents. This is a great use case for that. A lot of the times I want to find things that are just based on the subject line. So maybe I want to find just new leads, for instance, coming in here. You can see there's lots of new leads coming in here. I could filter based on the subject line, new lead. So in fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that for this particular instance here. So subject line is new lead. We can fetch the test event, and now it's going to bypass any email until it finds the most recent instance of this new lead. And that, I guess too, like this is happening pretty much in real time. So it's just going to pull in the last email, but it's only going to pull it in if it's a new lead email. Awesome. The next thing is that we can auto label emails. Let me kind of demonstrate what this looks like. We have labels over here. You can categorize all of the incoming emails in your Gmail account. You can create as many labels as you want. And then once you create these labels, we can create a workflow like this, which seems a bit overwhelming at a glance, but is quite simple because it's really every single one of these paths here are more or less the exact same thing. We're just categorizing emails. At least this is what I use. I categorize things into certain labels: promotions, social, personal, sales, recruitment, accounting, Google Calendar, community, and so on and so forth. And so that is how I personally do it. And we can simply do the same thing as well. So we can hit a plus button here and we can do text classifier. What the text classifier does is it will classify the text coming in, or in other words, it will categorize it for you so that when you have an email coming in, like for instance, this new lead email right here, we can categorize this as, for instance, a new lead, or if it's something else, we can categorize it however we want to. So what I like to pass in here is typically two values. The first value is the subject line, and the second value is the text of the email, which is right here. So we can pass in both of these fields here, and we'll just add in some additional context here. So I'll call this the subject line, and then I'll call this the email body. And now that we pass this in, we just need to define which paths to take people down. And so we could define different classification for all of these labels. I'm just going to keep it simple for this video. I'm going to do primary, promotion, and social. I have another video like this where I give this this more or less this whole system away for free in another video. If you guys want, I'll link that down below for you guys to take a look at. But more or less, we have these categories. We'll add in 3 for now. One will be the primary category, one will be the social category, and the last one will be the promotions category. And so I want to just kind of touch on this because I think this is really important. I see a lot of people struggling with adding the description in here. More or less in a nutshell, I find that less is often more when it comes to adding in a description of this. The description you use here is going to allow the AI to know whether or not this email should be tagged, for instance, as primary, social, and promotions. So we need to define exactly what a primary, social, and promotions email is. And again, this is just an example. We could use this for all the labels here as well. And when I say less is more, I just mean that like usually if I find that when people start, they'll add in, and this includes myself as well, I added in a lot of stuff and then it started conflicting with the other labels and then it started mislabeling them and it just created a lot of problems for me. So I like to add in less. So I'm just going to type in here anything that is a personal message, such as an email from a friend or family member. Okay, so we have that. We can do the same thing for the social here. So we'll say anything that is a social message, such as an email notification from Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And then we'll copy this and do the promotional email as well. So anything that is a promotional message, such as a discount email, promotion, or anything from an e-commerce brand. Okay, perfect. And there we go. We now have 3 categories. We could also add a catch-all if we wanted to here. So this could be like miscellaneous, and this could be anything that does not fall into any of the other categories. And so that way we have a catch-all here. Now, just before we test this out, we do need to add a model here because you can see it's like, it's not happy. We have this red ring around this. So we need to add a large language model. I'm going to use ChatGPT here. And specifically, I'm going to use the model 4.0 mini. Now, if you guys are brand new, and sorry for anyone who's watching this and hears me say this like a broken record, but in a nutshell, if you guys haven't done so already, you're going to have to head over to platform.openai.com, create an account. Once you've logged into your account, you're going to need to get the API token. So when we more or less create a credential here, we're going to need an API token. We get that by going into the settings here, API keys, and then creating something, and we'll have to add a balance of $5 in order for this to work properly. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to use ChatGPT inside n8n. And so there we have it. We've now classified the text, and based on this, it will route it into one of those 4 options: primary, social, promotions, or miscellaneous. And the last thing that we need to do in order to get these auto labels up and running is we'll add another module here, which is Gmail. And I'm going to type in a label, which will be adding a label to a message as that message comes in. And we can choose the label down here. Now, just before we actually run this, or before we finish this, we don't have any input data. So I'm going to exit out of this, hide the module here, and run this so that we can pull in some test data. And now I'm going to go in and pin this initial trigger message just so we have this and we can constantly reuse that same email instead of having to like wait for emails to come in every time, which can be quite annoying if you don't have any new emails in your inbox. So we're going to come back here, activate it. And now we have access to all this data on the side. We need two things, message ID and label names. So the message ID, if we go over to the schema up top here, and we can choose this ID from the text classifier. I usually like pulling it from the original trigger, but these are the exact same thing. So you can pull it from either or, and then we'll just choose the category that we want to, which in this instance is going to be category personal. And we'll do this for the next two as well. We can duplicate this by hitting Command D twice. And looks like these have been duplicated way far outside the actual scenario here. So we'll drag them down and we'll finish this off. So one will be promotional and one will be social. Awesome. I like to just label these properly. Otherwise it can get pretty confusing. So one will be personal. The other will be social. And we can change the label here to social. And lastly, this will be promotional over here. Awesome. Okay. And so in a nutshell, we've finished the auto labeling. This will work like a charm. It will automatically receive all emails coming in and it'll label them according to your particular Gmail account, whether it's primary, promotional, social, or any of the labels on the side here, which I think is really nice. Kind of following through with this, what I tried to do was the project, and this is the next tip here, is the project zero inbox, where essentially everything coming into your inbox just gets automatically routed to these labels. And so you can 100% do that. You could literally have this inbox here as like clean. It says the like no new emails being recorded, which honestly I think is like a beautiful sight. We can go ahead and we can just delete these. This is beautiful to me. I love that look. It just really helps with my anxiety knowing that there's like nothing there. But ultimately at the end of the day, while it is nice to do that, the thing is like I don't want to push all of my emails out of sight, because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And the problem is that if it's out of mind, then I'm not going to actually get around to replying to them. And so any critical emails I want in the inbox, and any emails that are not critical, I do not want in the inbox, which brings us to the next point here, which is a lot of the emails that I get, such as the promotional and social tab and half of the things in my primary inbox are junk, and I never have to even take a look at. This is like a rabbit hole of emails that I've never looked at in my entire life. I have no intention of looking at. And so I just want to get rid of these emails ASAP. And how we can do that is we can set up another node here. This is going to be a Gmail node, and we can mark it as unread. So we'll type in unread, mark message as unread. We'll select this, and we just need to pass in that proper message ID, which is going to be the Gmail trigger ID over here. And now anytime this runs, it will mark this as read, only if it's a social email or if it's a now promotional email. So in either instance, it's going to mark it as read. You can take it a step further and you can go to Gmail and you could delete this as well. However, I just will caution you that before deleting this particular message, I would run with marking it as unread first. And only when you're super happy with the results, then you can turn on the deletion, because you probably want to avoid having certain emails routed incorrectly and then deleting actually important emails by mistake. So before you encounter any errors, just make sure that it's working properly. And then after it's working the way it's intended to work, then you can go ahead and delete things as automatically. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is we can supercharge our Gmail inbox and auto reply, or we can create draft responses to particular emails as they're coming in. And so we have this particular email here. While this is not the best use case scenario, because obviously we don't want to reply to like some auto responder here, but we could respond to, for instance, personal emails as they come through. And so how we would go about doing this is we'd add another node here. And in this node, we choose OpenAI. And so with OpenAI, we'll select message a model. And this model here is going to reply to this person for us, or at least generate the response for us. And so there's a couple things we need to do here. First of all, we need to actually choose the model. I like to use 4.1 mini just because this is like the newer version, one of the newer models in OpenAI. It has less, it's faster, and it's more intelligent. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use that. And we need to have two messages here. One is going to be a system message. One is going to be a user message. The distinction between the two is that a system message is like the parameters here. It provides context telling OpenAI what needs to happen. With the user message, it is the input. So it, in a nutshell, is saying, here is the incoming email that you have to reply to. Now, I don't know why OpenAI decided to make their messaging names, or like naming convention, system, user, assistant, so incredibly complicated for something that's so incredibly simple, but they ended up doing it that way. And so I just wanted to preface that really quickly here. So we'll go ahead and type in these two messages. You're an intelligent bot capable of creating draft responses to incoming emails landing in my email inbox. And so I would take it a step further here, and I'd actually describe the type of person I am. So I'd put in user here. My name is Jono. I work at Automatable and XYZ or whatever. And you can add in as much information as you want. So you could even add in rules down here. Number 1, sign off as Jono. Number 2, address the user by their first name, and so on and so forth. So we can go ahead and do that. And lastly, we just want to actually provide the message that they're replying to. And again, I'm just going to say, this is the message you're replying to. And it's going to be subject line and email body. And we need to pass in these two variables here. So we'll scroll down to the bottom of the input section. We'll pass in that text here. And we'll also pass in the subject line here as well. Perfect. This will draft that message. Now, apart from this, there's two options. We could either send emails or we could create drafts for emails. And so if we add another node, we could send a message, and we could go forward and send this off. Now, I'm not going to cover this extensively. We're going to go over this, but I'm going to focus mostly on the draft email here. Because again, before even sending it off, I want to make sure that you're happy with the responses. And only after it gets it right pretty much every time, then you should automatically send it. But until that critical threshold where you're happy with the responses, I would create drafts instead. So we'll create a draft. Now, I'm going to put both of these on deactivated because we need to run this module to actually load in data so that we can use it. We'll take a look at the response here. Hey, Sandy, thank you for reaching out and sharing your budget with us. I'd love to learn more about your needs and how Automatable can assist you within your budget. Let me know a good time to connect. Best, Jono. Okay, off the bat, pretty good. I'm happy with that. So we could send a message back, and this message that we're sending is going to be a reply message. So we're actually replying to the initial message. And so we could go down to the bottom, Gmail trigger, and we can put in the email here, and the message is generated from OpenAI here. And more or less, that is it. Now, I would choose email type. You can change it to text or HTML. HTML is going to give you more flexibility when it comes to actually designing the email. However, if you're going to use HTML, you just need to clarify in the system settings here that you want to use HTML. Otherwise, I would stick to plain text. Okay, cool. Moving on, we're going to create this draft email instead. And so with this draft email, there's a couple things we need to do. Firstly, we need to add the thread ID. This is saying to Gmail, this is the thread, or this is the message that we need to reply to. And so we have that thread in the initial email trigger where we have this thread ID. So we'll drag that in. The subject line, to be totally honest with you guys, I don't understand why it's asking for a subject line to reply to an email, just because usually that's already taken care of. But I'm going to put in the exact same subject line of the previous email. And then finally, we have the response, and this is going to be the content generated by ChatGPT. We can go ahead and run this scenario from the ground up, test this, and this should deliver a reply to that particular email. And so let's see if that worked. Okay, it's just loading at a glacial pace. Sweet. So we're replying, "Hey Sandy, thanks for reaching out," and so on and so forth. And so that is how we can create auto replies. That's how we can draft emails and attach them to existing threads. Now, one thing that I want to talk about here that I'm not going to build out from the ground up, but I think is super beneficial, is forwarding emails off to people. Now, there's a couple examples of how we could do this. We could forward off emails to team members. So a task comes in, we need to create a task for them or message our team about that task. We could simply do that, or we could forward emails off to, for instance, our accountant. There's an unlimited amount of ways we could do this, but I'll take a common use case. I use Dext, and my accountant wants me to upload all electronic invoices into Dext, all receipts into Dext as well. And I really hate doing that because I don't want to spend the hour or few minutes every single week to go through my inbox, grab all the invoices, and then upload it in here. Fortunately, I can just email directly to Dext, and it will receive that email, take out the invoice, and upload it automatically. Now, that's potentially a specific use case to Dext. However, you could probably do this in like QuickBooks or Xero, which is accounting softwares, where in a nutshell, you can just upload these documents. And so with a workflow like this, what we're doing is when an email comes through and it's classified as accounting, what we're going to do is we're going to filter to make sure that that email contains a file. Okay, as long as there is an attachment that is contained, then it's an accounting email and it has an invoice. There might be some errors where maybe you upload something that you shouldn't, but that's okay with me. I'd rather spend the time deleting those files than having to upload everything manually. And then we can forward this over to Dext, which provides me with an email, and I just include that attachment, send it off, and then that is uploaded. Super nice, super beneficial. Now, the thing that we could do here is we could essentially create tasks in ClickUp for people. So let's say task comes in, a responsibility, maybe your project, and you're like, hey, I need my project manager to take a look. You could create a task for that person inside ClickUp. Connecting the credentials is pretty straightforward. I'm actually going to remove it from this workflow and come back here. We could create a task again in ClickUp. So create a task. And in a nutshell, you'll just sign in, very simple sign in using ClickUp, and we'll just drill down into the particular folder or list that we want to add that task to. So in my instance, I want to add it to this like test list I have here, project 2, and we'll just drill down through the team name, space name, the folder, the list, and then we could just add a test in like a project in here, test 1, 2, 3. And then as soon as, I don't know, something comes through, you need to add a task for somebody, you can simply do that straight through ClickUp. And now we can see that task added onto our dashboard here. You could also message people through Slack as well. So if you wanted to notify somebody, you could send off a message, and this will notify your team of anything coming in here. And so same kind of deal. I'm not going to build this out, but I'm just going to show you kind of the results here. You could send off messages inside Slack automatically in case you want to notify somebody in your team of a task that needs to be done. Next thing here that I want to go into is, let's say we have that invoice that was sent to us, and instead of forwarding it to our accounting software like Dext, we can upload this into Google Drive. And so now what I want to do is I want to change this particular trigger here to something that has a search term of file name PDF. So now it's going to search only for PDFs in my inbox here. We're going to unpin and test and see if it pulls something in, which it did. And I'm going to take it one step further. We actually need to add an option here to download attachments. Okay, so we're going to download attachments. If you don't specify that, it will not, unfortunately, grab the attachments for you automatically. So I'm going to fetch this example one more time. And now it still didn't include the attachments because I didn't click download here. So I'm going to test it for a third time. Hopefully, fingers crossed that this works. Okay, awesome. It did. Now we have attachment 0 here. So we have our PDF file from an email. And let's say we want to upload this into Google Drive. Well, we could select Google Drive. We could upload a file. And by default, it says input data field name is data. This is what it's searching for to upload a file into Google Drive. Now, I think it's kind of misleading inside n8n, and I see in my community a lot of people stumbling with this, and I certainly did when I started out. But you have the file name, which appears to be like open invoice vendor qrg.pdf. You just want to actually include this orange text here, attachment _0. So we'll go ahead, we'll write attachment _0, test this out, and this should work. Lastly, I just want to include a file name. And so with this file name, I don't want it to be something generic, like which is the same every single time. I'd rather have like a unique name. And so because we can't unfortunately access the file name from here, I guess we could actually through the binary here, we could probably do like file name, but just something that's a bit easier. I'm going to put in the ID / invoice. And that's just all I'm going to name it. And we're going to upload this into the Google Drive. And this file has now been successfully added. Main takeaway here is just making sure that the input data field name is the orange text over here, and then you were good to go. Now, one other thing, and probably the thing that I see tripping up the most amount of people, and like literally some people are spending weeks trying to solve this, is getting data from a particular PDF document like you just saw there, or maybe getting information from like a new lead here from Gmail and taking this unstructured data. And I say it's an unstructured message because, well, it's just a message. It's just a string of text, and then structuring it and sending it into a Google Sheet. So like, pulling out Sandy, pulling out Anderson, first name, last name, email, budget, and actually structuring that data in a Google Sheet. How do we do this, right? Like, this is what we're going to cover next. And I can't stress enough. I have seen people screaming in happiness and crying when they figure out how to do this properly, because it is just something that holds people up a lot of the time. So we're going to do this two ways. I'm going to talk about the email with this new lead data here, and then I'm going to also talk about how we can do this with a document. We're going to start with the document first, just to kind of give you some leeway here so you know what's going on, and then we'll move back over to the other example. The only difference between the two is if you're dealing with a document, you just need to convert it into text first, and you do that with the extract from file node here, and we'd extract from PDF. And if we tested this by typing an attachment _0 here, it will pull out all of the text in this file, okay? And it will put it into this text field here, which I think my face is conveniently blocking, but now we have all the data from that PDF just in the form of text. And so we can use this very similarly to how we have this unstructured message in our email. Okay, perfect. So that's good. I'm going to disable this and move it up, and I'm just going to pull in this particular email here. And how we're going to pull in this exact email is by the search node here. We're going to do subject equals new lead, which is the new lead title here. So we'll go ahead, fetch this particular result, and everything's coming through. I'm going to pin this so that we can run it multiple times. And we are going to use ChatGPT or AI to pull out structured data from an unstructured message. So OpenAI, we're going to choose message a model, and we're going to add in 3 messages here. and we're going to choose a model, which is going to be 4.1 mini. Now you can choose lots of different models here. This is just my preference here because it's newer, it's faster, and it's more intelligent than the other mini series, like 4.0 mini. Now, I'm going to quickly run through this one more time here. If we go back to this, if we open this up, we have 3 messages. We have system, and I just want to repeat this one more time because this is so important. We have 3 messages. The first message is the system message, which is the context. It's providing information on what ChatGPT is supposed to do. So in this instance, it's like saying, hey, you're supposed to take information like first name, last name, email, and so on, and pull it out of text. Okay, so that's the system message. The user message is essentially the input here saying, this is the text that you're pulling information out of, which is this email up top here. The last one is the assistant message, which is the response. We need to define how we want this response to look like. We want it to be structured data. So we're pulling out from this text over here, we're pulling data out of text and structuring it in the form of JSON data. What JSON data is everything over here on the left-hand side, input side. This is the backbone of n8n, so we need to structure it in JSON format. So let's go ahead and circle through this. I'm going to say, you're an intelligent bot capable of pulling out information from an email, such as first name, last name, email, and budget. And with that spelling mistake, that's fine. It should be able to understand properly. With the prompt here, we're going to put in the message, which will be this text message here. Here's the email message to pull out information from. Perfect. Now, this is the tricky part. This is the most important thing. We need to identify JSON data. How we do that is, if you're not familiar with JSON data, no worries, you don't have to code it. You just have to go to ChatGPT, and we're going to ask ChatGPT to create us this JSON data. And so how we ask it to do this is we're going to say, please generate me JSON data. Please generate me sample JSON data for the following things. And in this example, we're going to do first name, last name, email, and budget, but you can put in any fields you want to extract. I'm going to say, make sure they're all text fields. And that in a nutshell is it. It's all text fields because we're going to enter them into Google Sheets here. All of these are going to be text fields. Now, you don't have to have it as all text fields, but that's what I'm going to do. Last thing here, and when I say not all text fields, I just mean like, depending on your use case, you might actually need this in different data types, but text is the most simple data type. So we're going to do one last thing. I'm going to say, please do not put in any answers. Leave the answers blank. And so it's going to take or strip out all of this data so that it's just empty. And so we can copy this, and in our prompt here, all we need to do is paste it in and say one thing at the top. Please output the data as JSON data with the following structure. And so this is boilerplate. Everything here that I just wrote, you just write the same thing every time if you want to follow the structure. And you just need to identify to ChatGPT that it needs to be JSON data. Otherwise, it'll throw an error. The reason why is because we need to output the contents as JSON. I'm going to leave this unchecked for now to show you the difference between the two. But essentially, the difference is that in this instance, it's outputting it as text. And we know it's text because it has these quotations around it. Anytime there's quotations, it's text. But this is no different than the data that we got here. So it doesn't really help us out. But the second we change this to output as JSON data, now it's flipped it so that we have first name, Sandy, last name, Anderson, email, sandy@gmail.com, budget, $200. And now we can add this into our Google Sheets here and add in the particular values for the corresponding headers here. So we'll go ahead, we'll do that. We'll append row in sheet, which just means adding to that spreadsheet. I'm going to choose this untitled spreadsheet. I probably should have named this first, but that's okay. And we'll choose the tab that we're going to enter data into, which is sheet number 1 down here. And we can just drag and drop information in. So first name, last name, email, and budget. Perfect. We'll go ahead, give this a shot. It's pulling up the information in real time. It's going to add it in to this particular Google spreadsheet. And so that is how we can pull out data from emails, like unstructured data, like lead data here, how we can pull it out of PDF files automatically, all that kind of stuff. Just a couple last things here before we wrap up. One other thing that you could do is, let's say you have all of these leads coming in and you want to summarize these every single day, week, month, whatever the case may be. We can go ahead and we can do that by creating a new workflow here. I'm going to hide this. We're going to add another trigger here, and this trigger is going to be on a schedule. And you can choose whichever schedule, maybe once every day, once every week, once every month. For this instance, I'm just going to choose every day. And we want to pull out all of these particular leads for the day, and we want to send that to myself or to yourself via Slack every single day, or email or whatever. And so we'll hit the plus button and we'll search for Gmail. And this time I want to get many messages. So now we're pulling out many different emails from this inbox here. We're pulling out however many you define. You could return all, you could limit it to 50. We want to make sure that we uncheck simplified so that we can pull in the text body of these emails as well. And apart from that, I just want to add in a filter by search, which is subject equals new lead. We don't want to pull in all emails here. For instance, I don't want to pull in this test invoice. I just want to summarize all of these particular leads here. And so we can go ahead, do that, run this, and we would pull in 6 leads here. Now what we could do is we could take these leads and we could send them in a message. The only problem is that we have 6 leads. And if I add a Slack message, this will send off 6 Slack messages. It won't send off one message with 6 leads. It'll send off 6 messages with 6 individual leads. And so just like it says here, this is run one time. Now we've retrieved 6 leads and we're running them individually. We need to merge these together into one message. And so how we do that is through something called an aggregator. And what an aggregator does is it takes these individual leads and aggregates them together in one particular message. And I think it's best if I just actually write this down on this blackboard here, because this is like kind of getting into software engineering / a bit more advanced stuff. This is you're going to the grocery store. Okay. And in the grocery store, you have a list of things to buy. Okay. 1 is bananas. Number 2 is mangoes. And number 3 is apples. And you might be thinking, why the hell are you talking about a grocery store? Why the hell are you talking about a grocery list? Like, how does this have any bearing? This is a list. And a list is a fancy way of saying, or is a simple way of saying array. And inside n8n, you have different data types. One is text. This is like a text field here. And you can have a list of multiple things. And so that list could be, a grocery store list here. It could be a list of your grocery items, bananas, mangoes, apples. You can also have a list of leads. You can have Stacy as a new lead, Bob as a new lead, Sarah as a new lead. You have a list of leads here. And so essentially how these lists work is very similarly to how you'd go to a grocery store. When you enter this store, you're not going to start likely with apples. You're going to start at the top of the list. And you're not going to move to mangoes or apples until you've crossed off the first thing on the list. So you're not going to go to mangoes until bananas is done. And only once bananas is checked off, then you go to mangoes. But you're not going to go to apples yet until mangoes is done. And only once mangoes is checked off, then you go to apples and so on and so forth until your whole list has been completed. And why I say this is that array aggregators work in the same way. We're not going to continue past this until we've gone through all 6 leads and added them into this list. So we can go ahead, we can test this out. And we've got 6 leads that are now merged into one list. If we open this up, well, we'll see nothing happened here. And that is because we didn't add in the field that we want to merge, which is this test field. But if we run this again, now we have a list of 6 people here. And so this is still a list. Keep in mind, an array aggregator hasn't changed. Like, it's still a list of 6 leads, but it's no longer sending 6 messages. It's now sending 1 message at a time. And so we could send a Slack message here. Okay, so send a message. And now we could include in here, just going to message myself, for instance. I could send myself a message with all of these leads. So let's just see if it sends it. So you can see it's not like structured properly. So this isn't ideal. How we could change that is we could do like set or edit fields here. We could do lead report. This name is arbitrary. You can call it whatever it is you want. We can pass this text field in here and we'll change it to a string. And when we output this, it's going to look something like this. Again, this is not a beautiful list by any means. This is not something I'd send myself, but I just don't want to spend too much time in the weeds kind of doing something that I don't really perceive as like on track for this video. And so for that reason, I'm just going to leave it at that. But in a nutshell, you could grab all the list, or all the leads, merge into a list, structure that list properly, send yourself over a message, and then here is that message over here with all of that information in one place at one time. And that's pretty useful to have if you want to pull out reports from your inbox. The next thing that I want to talk about is less of an automation, but more of something that I recently started doing that was fundamentally game-changing. Honestly, it might be more beneficial than almost everything else that I'm talking about here. So I wanted to point this out. If you go into the settings section of Gmail, and we see all settings, and we hover over to the accounts and imports, we have this grant access to your account. This you can essentially give access to a virtual assistant. You can give access to your personal assistant or a member of your team to actually go through your Gmail and clean up everything, respond to people, all of that kind of stuff. And this has been something that has saved me so much time, and I am very thankful that I did it. Another thing that you could do is you could add like labels here, for instance. Like you could add a label for your personal assistant to go through and have tasks or emails assigned to them. And if we go back into our particular scenario here, you could add another text classifier for that specific person and start assigning things directly to them. Lastly, and finally, what we're going to cover today is just circling back to this Gmail trigger here. This Gmail trigger is something called a poll. Now, inside n8n, I just want to define what a poll is because I think that this is incredibly useful to know. And if you don't know this, you're going to not be happy with n8n. So this on one side is n8n. And on the other side, we have Gmail over here. This mic is kind of like inconveniently placed. Now, what happens with the poll is that in n8n, it will send a request over to Gmail and it will say, hey, do you have a new email? Is there an email that exists? And if there is an email, it'll say, yes, we have an email, and it'll return that email back. But if it doesn't have an email, then it will not return that. So let's say that you send a request to Gmail. There's no new emails. You've searched for all the emails. There's nothing new. It's going to say, hey, there's nothing new. But if there is an email, I'll send it back. But in either instance, you're still having to pay for one operation, which means that you are on the hook for paying it regardless of the outcome. Why that's problematic is because if you poll, which is requesting information at a specific interval, if you poll once every minute, In a given day, you would send 1,440 requests. This is a lot of requests because in your n8n account, you only have, if you're starting out on the cloud, 2,500 requests, which means you're going to go through this in like literally 1.5 days. And you're going to spend 25 USD or euros or whatever per month on something that's going to like expire in like a day and a half. So this is not ideal. So then the question becomes, well, how can you get around this? Like, how can we work around this? So if we go to n8n's pricing, we go to the pricing page, they have this starter, which most people are going to start out on when they're trying out n8n. But this, again, limits us to 2.5K. We can self-host, which is free, with an asterisk using this community edition. And this takes 2 to 3 minutes to set up. Here's 2 examples. I use hostinger.com, and we can go to Hostinger n8n. And this is an option that you can set it up in 2 to 3 minutes. You're paying less than n8n, and you bypass this whole thing. You don't have to worry about these limitations. The last one is Allegio n8n hosting, which is very similar. You can set it up in a matter of a couple minutes here. The only benefit to this that Hostinger doesn't have is that with Hostinger, you have to pay upfront right away for this. With Alessio, you only have to pay for what you use, which could be a lot more economical if you're not using n8n all that much. And so for that reason, you can bypass these particular limitations, which is the polling every minute. Like you could set this for every day or every hour, but I just get like probably hundreds of emails a day personally, and I want to clear these ASAP. I don't want them building up. So I want this triggering more often than not. And if you're like me, you'll probably want a higher frequency, but you're going to run into that limitation with the plans here. And to overcome that, you'll just need to sign up for self-hosting, which I also have a video on in my on my YouTube channel, absolutely for free for you guys to watch. But these are the 2 options. You can also choose Railway n8n hosting as well. This is a one-click install. Those are 3 options that you could run with right now. But yeah, that is pretty much it in a nutshell, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because I'm sure if you like this video, you'll probably like the other videos I release all the time as well. And if you want to learn more about AI automation, I would recommend taking a look at my school community here, where I help people just like yourself automate their entire business and help them make money with AI automation. So in a nutshell, there's 2 transformations I try and take people on in this community. Number 1 is helping people automate up to 80% of their business. I just give away the exact blueprints that I use to scale my business to 7 figures and automate pretty much myself out of a job. And then lastly, it's to help people actually create and scale an AI automation agency. Apart from that, there's weekly calls all the time, 5 at this current moment of time, every single week. If you ever have questions or get stuck on certain things, you can always jump on and ask for help, and I will be there helping you out. And then there's obviously a thriving community of people that are like-minded on the same journey as you that want to automate and ride the wave of AI automation. Apart from that, there's tons of other unreleased videos on here that I don't go into on YouTube. And these are probably the blueprints that have been the biggest mover and shakers for me, the ones that actually save me the most time and earn me the most money. And so that is it in a nutshell. Thanks guys so much. Hope you have a lovely day, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks and bye-bye.